Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Asano. My thanks to Randy McGlynn once again for having joined us. And the two Derby winners hit the wire together. Ferdinand for the late, great Charlie Whittingham and Bill Shoemaker, just edging out his younger rival, Ali Sheba, to capture the 1987 Breeders' Cup Classic. I interviewed Bill Shoemaker, and we spoke about Ferdinand, and he told me he was one of the most difficult horses he ever rode, because when Ferdinand made the front, if you made the front too early with him, he would pull himself up. And when you've got a rival like Ali Sheba coming after you, there's a very fine line in how long you can wait, and the shoe did a perfect job. Next guest this morning has 3 Breeders' Cup victories on his resume, all of them coming over the last 2 years. He has 7 pre-entered for next week's Breeders' Cup at Del Mar, and we are very pleased to welcome back to Down the Stretch, Mr. Mark Casse. Mark, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Let's start with world approval for the mile. Following a 5th in this summer's Manhattan, you decided to concentrate on middle-distance turf races for him. I think that was a brilliant decision. What led you to that decision?
Well, after sitting back and looking at it, world approval, for the most part, likes to have a target to run at. And the problem is when we were running, longer distance, it was tough because he has a fair amount of speed, and it was tough getting him to rate. So we thought, well, if we went back to a mile, it would increase, obviously the pace would be much faster, and it would allow him to relax and have a target. And so that was part of it. The other thing, realistically, we looked at it and we thought going a mile and a half that he was a decent horse, but we knew that he wouldn't be good enough to be competitive in the Breeders' Cup going a mile and a half. So we said, well, you know what? Let's go back, go a mile, and see how that works. And so when we did that, ultimately we had the Breeders' Cup in mind. And I've said it for years, training racehorses is like putting a puzzle together. You have to continue to move the pieces around until you find the right fit. And that's what we do. And luckily now I think we've got the puzzle together.
Well, I think
perfectly.
You do too. I think that was a wonderful decision. We are about to take a look at a piece of his last start, the Woodbine Mile, and as we pick it up, he is number 1 in front. So here, world approval did not have a target to run at. He was the target. With that in mind, what did you think of this effort?
I thought it was a good effort. Woodbine, as much as I love Woodbine, and there's probably no better turf course in North America, it's different. A lot of horses struggle there. You'll see there's a huge home field advantage when you run at Woodbine on the turf. So, I was a little worried. He'd run well, though, but there before, going a mile and a half, so this was different. The one hole kind of gave us another challenge, too. So the good news and all, that was one of the greatest riders of all time riding. So Johnny knows what he's doing. Again, we brought Johnny there to ride him in the mile, knowing that, we wanted Johnny for the Breeders' Cup. So, I thought it was a good race. I think it was probably sneakingly better than most people think, in that the pace, the first quarter was slow.
Right.
The second quarter was very fast. And if you'll see, there were some good horses that were running up head and head with him. They ended up finishing nowhere, and he kicked on. So, I think I thought it was a good race. He's doing extremely well. He's probably training better than he has in his entire life.
Wow.
So we're excited. We believe that he's the horse to beat.
Well, you should be excited, but may I take a minute to express a concern that I have? He won the Woodbine Mile on the front end, and I thought very impressively. But, Mark, in the 33-year history of the Breeders' Cup Mile, only once, that was Lure in 1992, was a horse able to win that race wire to wire. I'd love
That's
it.
not a concern then, Mark, because I don't think you won't see him on the lead.
Okay, what if you draw post one again and Johnny decides he wants to go to the lead?
I think looking at the field, if you looked at the Woodbine Mile field, you could see that there was lack of speed.
Yes.
When I look at the horses that are competition, I'm not concerned about that. There's going to be a couple horses. I'd be more concerned about us, just getting shuffled back a little too far going into the first turn. I'm not worried at all about being on the lead. I think there's speed in there that's going to get in front of us.
Okay, we know hopefully Heart to Heart will be in there, but
he'd be one.
I'm not. I don't know. That's a statistic. And listen, 33 run. When you look at a sample of 33, that's a reasonably good sized sample. It's just a brutal race to try to win on the front end, coupled with the fact that I remember you told us months ago when we were talking about World Approval, you felt he was better with a target to run at. That's why I thought the Woodbine Mile was a particularly good performance from him.
Oh, I agree. And, looking at the Woodbine Mile, there was not a whole lot of speed. So I was sitting, when I was handicapping the race, I said, where's our target? Where's our target?
Yeah.
Where's our target? And guess what? There was no target.
Yeah.
But when I look at the past performances of the Breeders' Cup Mile, I see some targets.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I'm not concerned one iota.
Okay. All right. So I feel better now that you've told me you're not going to be in front. So let's move from the turf mile to the dirt mile and talk about the consistent, awesome slew. Mark, he appears, since you've gotten him, you have run him strictly around one turn, and I think that has been a key to his success. But as we know, the dirt mile's 2 turns. Your thoughts about that?
Well, I wish it was one.
Yeah.
I do know, 3/4 is too short for him.
Yeah.
So I think he deserves to be in the Breeders' Cup. He's accomplished a lot of things. The one thing that he still would love to see him accomplish is obviously being a Grade 1 winner. So do I wish it was a one turn? Of course, but he has won going 2 turns.
Yes.
I always just felt like he won going a mile on the 16th. I believe he won the Smarty Jones, ran one of his best numbers ever. So he is capable of running 2 turns. The mile's going to be interesting. We need some speed, which there's going to be, I believe, and we need some luck. Let's face it. Unlike World Approval, I think World Approval goes into the rate, to the Breeders' Cup, looking like if he gives us his best performance, he's probably the horse to beat. Awesome Slew, he needs to come with his best performance to have a chance. So those are 2 different horses coming in, 2 different ways.
Let's talk 2-year-olds. We'll begin with Flame Away for Friday's Juvenile Turf. The only unusual thing about this is Flame Aways never run on grass. I know you've tried to get them on grass. Talk about this.
Well, if there's any chance that we're going to get them on soon on Friday at Del Mar, it'll be because of Flame Away. I've made 3 attempts to run Flame Away on the turf because we believe that is by far and away his best surface. But as you alluded to, we've been unsuccessful with that so far. So I feel fairly certain that's going to happen next Friday, and our hope is that we are correct in our assessment with him, and that he does move up on the grass, because he'll need to be. he'll need to. His performances, though they are good, are below a lot of those better horses. So he's going to have to improve. The one thing I will say about Flame Away, he has this great habit, and it's called winning.
Yeah.
He's won 3 out of 4. Not many 2-year-olds can say that, and he's a big, strong colt, and most importantly, he's training extremely well right now. So he's going to give us his best effort. He's going to put his best foot forward on Friday. Hopefully, it's good enough to get him into the picture.
3 fillies for Saturday's Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Will begin with Heavenly Love. We are about to take a look at a piece of her winning the Alcibiades as we pick it up. She is number 9, stalking in second. Mark, talk about the substantial, at least in my opinion, substantial progress this filly has made in a relatively short time. From a distant third in her debut sprinting to this good-looking stakes win.
Mm-hmm. Well, first, you'd have to know what we do in our thought process. My thought process is that as long as I can get a young horse started, I think it's a big deal. We don't, and I've said this a million times, we don't put a lot of emphasis on it. We had her at we sat down, and of course, she was a little slow to begin, and she came running, had a little bit of trouble, and I thought it was perfect. I then brought her back to Ocala and trained her, and thought, you know what, this filly's pretty good filly. So we sent her to Kentucky. Had her. We didn't take her to Saratoga. We had her at Churchill, and she was training lights out with David Carroll, our chief assistant there in Kentucky. And the big question was when the races came around, we were looking at those Kentucky Downs purses, a maiden special weight, $130,000. And I said to David, she's trained so good on the dirt. Do we really want to do this? And he said, Mark, I don't think it's going to matter. And so we ran her in. I said after she broke her maiden there, I've watched a lot of races from Kentucky Downs. I thought Aero Force was the most impressive 2-year-old winner that I've seen win at Kentucky Downs.
Right.
I thought hers was even more impressive. So after the race, it was a big race, and I said to David, okay, now we're going to run in the Alcibiades. And he was like, okay. And I have to tell you, even Julian Leperoux, when I said, Julian, we're going to run her. And they all thought we'd run in the Jasmine because she ran so well on the grass.
Right.
I said, no, we're going to run in the Alcibiades because she had trained so well. And I thought they had to beat her, but I never dreamed she would win with the ease that she won with in the Alcibiades.
Were you surprised? The one thing different about the Alcibiades than her 2 prior races is she showed a lot more early speed. I mean, she put Julian into the game early. Were you surprised at all by that?
No, because I told him to.
Okay.
We had just decided that, and I think it's important. You'll see we did it with Classic Empire when he won the Breeders' Futurity.
Right.
We put him into the race, knowing that when we went to California, that we needed to be close to the pace. And if you remember in the Breeders' Futurity, we sent Classic Empire away from there and got early position, and then that position is what helped him win the Breeders' Cup. So something works, you stick with it. We purposely asked Heavenly Love to show more speed in the Alcibiades, and it worked out well. And we're gonna do the same thing in the Breeders' Cup. You know, a lot of times, Mark, again, don't base your opinion when you see some of our horses start, especially for the first time. We believe it's a learning process.
Right.
I like my horses. I tell all my riders that all our riders that ride for us, I'd rather be a closing fourth than a dying third. I think, I want our young horses to learn to run by horses. And to me, especially in their first start, that's the most important lesson they can learn.
You will also have Geo Game for the juvenile fillies on the same card that Heavenly Love won the Alcibiades. Geo Game won the opener that day, also at 1 1/16. She actually ran faster than Heavenly Love. Tell us about Geo Game.
Well, Geo Game reminds me of last year where we had a little filly called Valdorna,
Right.
who won the exact same race. She won opening day at Keeneland, first 2-year-old filly race going 2 turns in Kentucky, and she won by 5 lengths. I believe she ran 1/5 of a second faster than Geo Game did. And I thought Geo Game's win was easier this year than Valdorna's win last year, and of course Valdorna got beat ahead in the Breeders' Cup last year. So I thought her performance was good, and I think she deserves to be there. It honestly wouldn't be a shock for me to see her win.
Now, Julian has ridden both Geo Game and Heavenly Love. Who's he going to ride in the Breeders' Cup?
Well, I think that one's probably a no-brainer.
Okay,
He's going to ride Heavenly Love. Manny Franco is who we've had some luck with, and I think is the next Johnny Velasquez or Joel Rosario. Manny's going to come ride Geo Game.
Okay. Your third filly for the juvenile fillies is a Canadian, Wonder Godot. She is 2 for 3 during her career, but has never raced on dirt. You got Flame Away going to grass for the first time, and now Wonder Godot going to dirt for the first time. She looks like she's a pretty classy filly, though.
She's a good horse. So, it's a bit of a disadvantage having not run on the dirt, but she also has an advantage in that, especially she's a filly we've known. She's a big filly. She looks like a 3-year-old colt. I mean, she's magnificent to look at. She's big and she's strong. And we've known all along that the longer, the better. Went ahead. We had some options. Gary, Barbara, and I discussed it, and we could have sent her to Kentucky and ran her in the Alcibiades.
Right.
But then she would have been going 2 turns on the dirt for the first time. So we talked about it, and we said, what we can eliminate one thing, and that was we went ahead and let her run 2 turns on the synthetic. And I thought it was a great race if you watched her. And I also told Patrick Husbands to kick her on out and make sure she finished. And you can see when he asked her to go, she accelerates. And she must have galloped out 1/8 of a mile in front of everybody. So then as soon as that happened, we got her to Churchill Downs, where we prepare a lot of our Breeders' Cup horses. And she's trained exceptionally well there on the dirt. My only concern, and hopefully that will be rectified, I was not crazy with how the racetrack was at Del Mar this summer with it being so deep and cuppy. I don't know. I think she would struggle with that. But I have to believe that the racetrack will be fairly fast at Del Mar.
Final pre-entrant, you are hoping to get Holding Gold into the turf sprint. He was a good solid second 2 back at Saratoga.
Well, he's in.
Oh, he's in. Okay.
I mean, unless you know something I don't.
No, I'm sorry. No, it's my mistake.
Yeah.
How's he doing?
He's doing great. You've scared me.
No, I apologize.
I know we're in. Holding Gold's a pretty good horse, and he's won a grade 2. His biggest nemesis, Green Mask, unfortunately was injured earlier in the year. So he's another horse, especially going 5/8 on the turf. You're gonna, we need some luck. Yeah. He had his last start was unplaced, but it was on a softer turf, and he had a lot of bad luck. He had no good luck. So he'll need some luck, as any of the horses running 5/8 on the turf will be. I'm fairly certain he's going to get a fast turf, which that's what he likes.
Your very talented juvenile champ from last year, Classic Empire, has been retired. Give us an idea, and you know, you did this through the months with us, but how exciting, I guess, slash frustrating was it to train Classic Empire?
Well, I mean, you know, Classic Empire took us to places we've never been before. So I have no regrets. I mean, he's just was extremely talented horse. And did things always go perfect for us? No. But I think that's just showed how, I think some of it showed how great he truly was. And, you know, somebody asked me the other day what was the best race that Classic Empire ever ran, and without a doubt, my opinion was the Kentucky Derby. And it was one of his worst performances. I mean, one of his, you know, worst finishes. But for him to overcome what he overcame and still to run as well as he did is just amazing to me. And I guess his second one would have been probably the Arkansas Derby, because, you know, of all the different issues we had of getting him ready, and for him to be able to go, you know, with a lot of time off and be able to run and win the way he did for the Arkansas Derby was amazing. I mean, he's truly a great horse. If I had any regrets, I wish I think most people know how great he was, so that's fine. So now we got to keep our fingers crossed and hope he has beautiful babies. If they look anything the way he does, you're going to see some stars.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. And finally, you are losing your top assistant, who is going out on his own. And for those members of our audience who don't know, that happens to be your son, Norman. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, we announced it this morning, and so, or last night. Honestly, it's been kind of emotional morning for me. I mean, it's something that we've been talking about for a long time. It's something he's been preparing for. It's something you know, our team has been preparing for. I'm extremely proud of him, and I know he's going to do great things. And it's just it's part of life.
That's right.
And he wants to do it, and I want him to do it. I was very fortunate at a young age that my father helped get me started, and I know I lost my dad a couple years ago, but he was my biggest fan, and I'm going to probably be Norman's biggest fan. So you know, Team Casse will miss him, but we'll also be rooting for him, and you know, it's exciting times. It's sad times, but it's also exciting.
It is, yeah. Well, Mark, as always, thank you. We appreciate your time. I want to wish you all the best in next week's Breeders' Cup. We hope the horses run well for you and come out of it. And since this will be the last time we speak on the show, I want to thank you, you know, for all the times you've joined us through the years. We appreciate it. Our audience enjoys hearing from you, so thank you so much for that.
Well, Mark, I have to say I've enjoyed our time together. I'm disappointed and saddened that, you know, we're not going to be doing this anymore together, and I just would like to thank you for all your hard work and everything you've done for horse racing, and it's truly appreciated, and you'll be missed.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mark. Best of luck next week.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye,
Mark Casse, ladies and gentlemen, we are up to our final break. Obviously, we're going to be going long this morning. That's because a man who's got 13 horses pre-entered for the Breeders' Cup will be joining us after the break, Mr. Chad Brown. As we go to this break, one of my favorite fillies winning at the old Gulfstream Park. We're going to take a look at the 1989 juvenile fillies to the break. Back with Chad Brown right after these messages.